Hey everybody, my name is Nikolay Marinov, Niki for short, and I'm a material artist at Frontier Development. And today we're going to be talking about how to get into games and some of my workflows, what it is to work with production, and what it is to ship games. I would like it to be more of a conversation rather than me talking and rambling on for stuff, because I can get carried away quite easily. So whenever anyone has questions or wants to talk about something, feel free to chip in and we can discuss everything. Is that all right with everybody? Yeah, so if it's, yeah, perfect. Good. So I guess I will be sharing my screen with you guys, and we'll go over to a presentation and some workflows, and we will see what you guys like and what you guys want to know, and yeah, we'll go from there. So yeah, let me just share my screen and see what happens. Right. I guess you can see my screen right now. We got to go back to the chat. So perfect. I'll start. So, as I said, my name is Nikolay Marinov. I'm a material artist at Frontier Developments. I've been doing materials for the last couple of years. I've been in the industry for about 2 years in an AAA company and about 5 years, including indie companies and startups. I would be talking a bit about my education because it's a bit different than most. Because I haven't graduated the game development uni. I was going to do that. A bunch of things went sideways, which basically prevented me from actually attending that. And I went in and studied computer engineering at my local university, which I then had the opportunity to do a bunch of science research and all kinds of other stuff. So outside of art, I also am known for a bit of programming, electrical engineering, physics, maths, and stuff like that, which we're gonna cover a bit more. We managed to win a NASA competition there, where we presented a physics paper about simulating stuff. Like the idea was basically we made a simulation in Unreal where you could potentially run different tracks and make the most how do you say it, the best path for a rover to go and search for minerals that it would need and run basically the simulation over and over again. And we managed to build like a super small environment with it in like 36 hours, which I can probably show you here as well. I have it loading, and basically it's something we managed to get in with real world data. So all the craters and all the distribution stuff is based on scans from the Apollo missions, and some cool stuff we managed to get in for just a couple of hours. So this is basically, I'm showing the kind of stuff I was doing when I was at uni. And after that, we moved on to all kinds of other similar projects. One of my greatest accomplishments was that I managed to win the meat mat contest, which basically was probably one of the highlights of me doing material art. And I do have a breakdown, I think, in here that's probably going to be quite interesting for the most of you. I also went to the University of Coimbra where I did my thesis paper on procedural generations and of 3D assets in real-time environments. It's a 80-page paper which is available for free on my Gumroad. It's one of the most downloaded assets I've put out for free there, which is like around 5,000 or 6,000 downloads right now. So I've put it just to help other people and students understand more about how texture map works, how rendering engines works, and how engines like Unreal handle procedural content mainly generated with the Substance and Houdini and similar stuff. So yeah, here's a few examples of that thesis paper that I can provide the link for anybody that's interested if they want to read it. It's quite in-depth, but still quite easy to follow for beginners to understand how stuff in games and movies work. Although most of you are in uni for that, so you would know most of it, but still, it's a nice read for anybody that wants to get a deep dive into that. So in my career, I started with a few with a few indie companies, a few startups where we worked on some virtual reality stuff in Unreal. Mainly, like if I go again on here, you can see like projects in Unreal that we produced these apartments that were in London. They were not even built yet. We had drones to take panoramic images for the outsides of them and then run it through HTC Vives. So in my early career, we used to do kind of a mix between ArchViz and virtual reality. So it wasn't exactly games, but it's still close enough that would get you enough experience to actually do these kind of stuff. And before I continue, I just want to pop the chat open on my phone because I don't actually see if anybody is writing anything while I'm speaking. So would be cool if I don't ignore anyone's. But yeah, continuing. After that, I moved in to a mobile game development with a small team, which was probably one of the biggest failures of me doing any project, which is something that some of you or most of you are going to go through and will show you that it's not bad to fail and you would inevitably fail, but that would get your expectations to a good standard, and that failing is not bad because you can always learn from it. And after that, I moved to part-time to do. Actually, it was during the same period of time where I did part-time as at Kitbash 3D as an independent contractor, which was a good experience for me to learn and work, but if it wasn't the best place to work, if I can put it lightly. And basically after that, I just graduated uni and moved to work at Frontier, where I've been working for the last 2 years, where I first worked on Jurassic World Evolution 2, and now I'm working on the Formula 1 Manager game, which is out next month. And after that, I'm continuing to our Warhammer title. So it's pretty interesting stuff that we're managing to build on. So yeah, here you can see some of the stuff I've done for Kit Bash. Basically, mainly texturing and getting the shaders better. And for Frontier, these are some of the materials I did for Jurassic World Evolution 2. We had a lot of cool parallax effects with these materials that we managed to run on the Cobra engine. Basically, I'm responsible for making like a huge database and using those to basically make the game run from a memory perspective from the materials and textures, which are the most heavily intense things usually in games. And moving on for my workflow, I will be showing you two different workflows. One of those are the meat mat texturing and how I go with Substance Painter to texture those, and the other one is how I do layer materials in Substance Designer. So starting with Substance Painter, we can start with looking at the whole picture. This is a traditional Bulgarian costume used to scare away evil spirits from the village, and it's been still part of some traditions back home. So I decided that what better thing to do than something traditional, which was the perfect thing because it won me the first place. And you can see the difference from the starting point on the left to the finished point on the right, where only displacement used and no fiddling with UVs and no scopes and changing the models. So that was the whole goal of it. Continuing on here, it's very important to have your reference images and have your different color perspective from early on, just so you know where you're working on at what point. You want to stop doing something and move to the other part, and having the overall color schemes early in the beginning. Here you can see how my height map looks, the displacement layers. These are basically showing you can see how the white part of the height map is basically the horn, so they're extending quite a lot, obviously. And here there's how I build it. I basically get some initial shapes with masks, and I paint around the shapes to get a nice mask. And then I have a few layers that I paint the edges, and I use the artifacts to my advantage, so I can get something interesting going on. And then when we use the displacement, we get the final look, which is the one you saw earlier. And here are a few more interesting stuff, like using the similar approach to what we did in what we do in Substance Designer. We mask a few noises, and just so we can get, for example, here the roll on the above the shoes. So these are kind of elements that are more Substance Designer based, but you can definitely implement them in Substance Painter to get nice variety masks and interesting details. And then I have like a few wear materials where I put a lot of color and edge wear on top of everything to get it more dirty looking and more nice, I guess, in the end. And here are a bunch of masks and alphas I've built in Designer that we can use in Painter, and you can see how they applied to the costume and helps me bring up all the details up. So that definitely is something that you can do. It basically make masks in Designer, Photoshop, or ZBrush, and import that in Painter and help your projects speed them up, make them a lot nicer than having to deal with the default stuff in. And there is a video that I don't know it's gonna run, probably not, of the project of the process, but I can probably circle back to that a bit later. This is like a 3D print of the whole thing. It was printed by a Memaki printer, which is one of the most expensive 3D printers in the world, which is quite nice because it gets the albedo map before it prints, so it prints in full color, and then it gets the roughness map, so it can spray paint where it's gonna be shiny, where it's not. Which is, I haven't seen that in any other 3D printer yet, which is quite an interesting thing to look at. And then it's the Substance Designer workflow, which is something which is quite interesting for me, hopefully for you too. Here we will be going about how to create a Baroque material, which is step by step, gathering references and trying to determine what kind of shapes you can see here on this image. In the green, you can see the macro shapes. Always start with the bigger shapes and work yourself down to the details. We separate the mid-level ones, the mid to macro shapes, and then the micro shapes, which are the last thing. The micro shapes should be, your material should be able to stand on its own without the micro shapes. That's the rule of thumb I use. And by separating these, you can kind of think about what you can prioritize and not getting lost in your workflow. And in the Substance Designer, here we start with the simple shapes, the macro shapes, just a few displacement maps, nothing too fancy, just to get an overall feel for it. Here we start to add more shapes to it to get a more interesting variation detail, so the mid-level shapes. And layering these correctly is very important, and not to get a noisy normal map, noisy height, noisy displacement. After that, we continue with just adding more and more shapes to the whole thing. Here you can see some of the flower details, the more Baroque ornaments, where we continue layering these on top. Here you can see the height map for the shield in the middle. A lot of interesting details like that, warping shapes, just to get a nice, interesting ornaments, which then become this shape on the top right corner of the screen, and then we basically continue adding more and more shapes until we get the normal map. We then can combine different normal maps for different parts of the whole part, so we can have a more interesting variety without having a noisy height map, which is one of the worst things you can have in a material. And here we can add the normal, roughness, metallic, and then we start adding colors. So these are the main colors that we're trying to add. We can separate these in different areas and then overlay the other colors, which will be the gold colors. And when we bring them together, you get this nice differently shaded albedo map without any other information in it. And the end result is this Baroque ceiling, which I'm quite proud of, and which generates different ideas and different techniques in Designer, making it a really complicated and well stood out material. So this is most of the stuff I wanted to talk to you about, and now we can have a Q&A or portfolio review if anybody is interested in that. Come back to the Discord channel. Right. Yeah, so what do you guys want to do from here? Do you want to discuss a Q&A, or let's see about some portfolios about? And also let me find the other videos that didn't vote in the meantime. So I can share that with you. Drop it in the chat. So oh yeah, that's an interesting one. Yes, I can probably open it in Painter. It might get me some time to actually open it, because it's a big file. But I would try to get the file open, and we can have a deeper dive in it. If not, there is a few articles I wrote to break it down as well, which is something I'm looking forward to sharing as well. Let me see if I have it on these files. Should be somewhere here. So just quick question. In the meantime, I'll just drop a few links from the presentation so you can all see those. So these are the ones I showed quickly. And the other one, which didn't load for some reason, we'll find it. To answer your question, Nathan, I think the favorite thing I've worked on professionally right now is definitely the Jurassic World materials. So a few damaged materials with the Baroque occlusion shaders. I'll send the link for that as well. Here's a detailed breakdown of here's a detailed breakdown of the meat mat material, and here is the video that didn't load during my presentation. So you can see the process of building up the whole texture step by step, layering stuff on, making the masks, and having the final result. As a from materials perspective on Jurassic World evolution, I think this one was the favorite one I did. Quite interesting shapes, interesting shape language, bunch of Baroque occlusion. So that was quite nice. But I think the most interesting thing I worked on, because it took me quite a long time to figure out how to make it work, was this project. So this was really complicated for me to figure out to make, but now I have it down to T, and I know how to make it again. Yeah, to answer the other question, yeah, I'm constantly not happy with a lot of stuff in my portfolio. I delete stuff from my portfolio almost monthly, and now I'm going back to other even stuff that's now on my portfolio and trying to actually delete some of the older stuff and replace them with newer. So I'm trying to have basically nothing over 2 years old right at the moment, and that's basically me getting to another level, because your portfolio is only as strong as the weakest piece in it. You should always remember that. If you have like a few super nice pieces and one piece that's off, recruiters are always going to see that, and that's always gonna put your application down. So it's a really cool thing to do, to actually get your portfolio up to date. And once you go to a decent high enough state, I guess you can kind of slow it down. But until you have, let's say, 10 years of experience and everybody in the industry knows you have to work on your portfolio quite a lot, because the industry is quite small and people know each other, and you would be amazed how fast you would know people in all kinds of other studios. So to answer that question, Nathan, it's a bit of a weird question, because it's different for every kind of artist. Because you can be a technical artist, you can be a character artist, you can be a foliage artist, a material artist, tech artist, even programmers. So it's a bit of a weird thing. Obviously, you have to know what kind of studios are you after, and Unreal is a big thing right now. So having projects in Unreal is really nice. Even if you build them with megascans, although a lot of studios do not like megascans. Certainly, we do not like it as well, and we try to look for people that build things without the help of megascans. I'm not saying scans are banned, but like stuff with mega scans kind of gets repetitive because it's now free. So we kind of tend to avoid it, and we tend to make everything procedural. A good portfolio has to have not only stellar stuff, composition and lighting is, I think, the selling factor. You have like around 5 seconds to catch the recruiter eye when they open your portfolio, and if you don't stand out in the first 5 seconds, you do not have a chance to get that job, for example. And having a nice presentation, stellar compositions is, I think, the most important part. Presenting yourself in a way that's professional and that you know what you're doing is, I think, the best advice I can get. And in terms of lighting and composition, there is a lot of books about painters, architects, photography. I even picked up photography a few years ago just to learn more about compositions and color theory and lighting, which makes my work, I would say, stand out on ArtStation and on recruiting. So I think that's a good way to approach it. But again, the question is a bit too non-specific, if I have to say. Let me see if I can find out all the stuff I can actually add to the chat as well. Yes, let's look at this portfolio. I'm gonna share my screen again so we can all look at the same thing. Okay, sec. Should be sharing right now. Yeah, let's look at the portfolio. So the first thing I'm noticing here is that everything is a bit too dark and everything is a bit too the same. I would say it's not a bad portfolio, but some of these would scream let's say uni work or junior work. For example, these are like, it kind of shows off that you can model a shape, but everything is just a bit too dark. I would say in terms of your composition, some of the stuff I like, but some of it I don't really like. I would say, so here on the first one, I really like how the specular is catching this bit of your weapon, but when you present these, like the signature and the logos are something that you shouldn't have in your thumbnails because they don't stand really well. And here you're cutting out a big part of your weapon. You're showing the whole weapon, but you're cutting it as well. So that's kind of removing the whole purpose of it. Let's open a few of those and talk about it as well. So basically, the thing here is like, don't try to fit everything in one picture. Have a few different photos that showcase a few different bits. So for example, have one photo that's only this in a good lighting. Have one photo that shows this. Have a photo that shows your wireframe, because of wireframe it doesn't really stand out, because we want to see your polys. And the black background is not something that's quite that works quite well on a lot of stuff. I try to avoid it. Try to have a lot of stuff in the background going on. I would avoid also putting any signatures here stuff. If you want to have a logo, have it down here, and have a template that you can reuse fast. So I think that's one thing I can comment for here. I like the bullets. They're quite well presented. If we go here, I really like the background with the brushes here. I don't like the logo. I don't like these bits here, which make everything a bit too noisy. A bit too much is happening here. So if this bit wasn't here and these bits weren't here, this would be a lot more. Would be presented in a really good way. Here in the camera, there's like a lot of empty space that's going on, a lot of jitters I'm seeing. Doesn't let me stop and look at your details, which is a bad thing because I want to look at how you can texture and see stuff. And here I want to look at your wireframe and I want to see like a bigger shot. So try to have those like better laid out so I can have a better look on those. And let's go to this one. So this one as a composition is quite nice. I wouldn't have put it on this background, and the blue white I don't think it works that well. A few, like for example, you can see how it looks on your reference, and on your reference, if you did something like that, it'll worked a lot better. When you're doing like these diorama type of effects, try to have like an alpha to break it out, because when you don't have an alpha, you're basically having this circle which kind of limits your way of presenting stuff. I like this effect, but from a distance it looks quite dull. It doesn't have a lot of stuff going on. I think your roughness map is kind of not having enough information to catch the specular reflections on here. Overall, I think this is a nice shot where you show your topology. Maybe adding try count somewhere is going to help you. I don't know why this bit is blurred. That's a bit weird to me. That's something you can potentially change. And yeah, showing your texture map is a good thing. Showing your material is also a good thing. Try to avoid having like these painterly fonts because we wanna read it quickly and see what's going on. I know we're trying to be a bit more artistic with this. I would say 116K poly is a bit too much. Maybe you have a lot of too many polys on your legs and too many polys going on here. Maybe like having this to 30, 40, or 50K polys is a more realistic way of looking at it, and looking at your maps. So 2 4K maps. For a portfolio piece, it's okay, but for a game piece, you would have to follow your textile density, which means that you would have, let's say, 2 1K textures or 4 5 12 textures, something like that. Don't be afraid to push your limits on how low you can go with textures as well, because it's something we do a lot in the studio as well. So as a portfolio, I wouldn't say it's too bad, but it actually can be quite nice if you address some of the stuff I mentioned. But for now, I see just a bit of guns on a dark background that doesn't stand out from anything. But this does stand out if you present it in a more interesting way, if I would say. The other thing is like try to avoid the black backgrounds. Having a neutral color with a gradient here, like this one, is a lot better. So we see on the. Let me go back to Discord and see what else. Let's see the other one, the other portfolio as well. Just a second. So usually, yeah, you have to get. It's good to get permission model something from a concept. Sometimes you can't actually. It's good to, but you always have to credit them. Credit the artist, obviously. If you don't get permission, obviously you cannot sell anything, but you would be also quite inclined to not have any issues if with them legally if you don't sell, and you can just model from somebody else you just got inspired, for example. But always do try to reach out and ask for permission. Yeah, be sure apply these things to your portfolio, and be sure to reach out to me if you need any more questions and reviews when you try to make adjustments to your portfolio. So let me look at Hannah's portfolio. So in her portfolio, basically you would when you wanna go for character portfolios, you either wanna go full character in or really 2D. You have to choose what you want. Unfortunately, if you're attending a games uni, one thing I don't like about most games unis in the UK is that they try to make people do concept art and then technical art and then modeling and sculpting, and you kind of get confused with what you want to do, and your skills kind of get messed up as well because you're trying to do with everything and not specializing in one area. For example, I don't do concept art and I don't like doing it, but that doesn't mean I'm not good at doing materials and procedural stuff and more technical art stuff. And you shouldn't be forced to know everything for every program and every different aspect, basically. That's what I'm saying. So, no, I don't draw at all, actually. I used to draw before, but no, now I try to get myself to do more photography, which helps me with color theory and balancing out stuff. I like more technical art. I wanna look at histograms. I wanna look at compression types and algorithms and how images work, because in the end you're just feeding images through your GPU, which is understanding how to make everything work better in a game. So I would say drawing might help a 3D artist, but it's not necessary. I don't do it. I did it a lot maybe 10 years ago. I haven't done it since. And being a 3D artist doesn't mean you have to be good at traditional art, because they don't have much in common. They're both art in some kind of way, but mostly they don't have that much in common. And character art is the only exceptions where drawing will help you understand, because you need to learn anatomy and stuff like that. But character art is also very hard. It's very competitive, and it's I would say one of the worst fields you can get in, because you have to be really, really good. For example, if you need to be if you want to be an environment artist or a prop artist, even if you're not that good, the software kind of helps you pass the realism test. And when you're not making faces and organic stuff, it's a lot easier to make stuff look realistic. That way you can start in the industry quite early. But when you're doing character art, the competition is insane, and the places to work aren't that much. So having that in mind is something really important. For example, last year there was there was this internship for character artists at Riot, and there was like 60,000 applicants, and only 6 got in, and all of them were incredibly talented, and it was an internship, which means it's unpaid, which is just mental at this point. So character art is definitely something that you should be aware that it's going to make your life a lot difficult if you're not one of the best at it. So yeah, to answer your if character art is so highly competitive, yeah, you can say for all kinds of like creature design, character art, stuff like that, everything where you have to sculpt organic characters, it is super competitive. And it is paid more than an average artist, but it's not paid as much as a technical artist, for example, which is the other issue that you would so not 6K, 60K, and only 6 got in. So yeah, it's the uncanny valley is something that brings stuff out, because it's a lot easier to make non like objects real. Like if you make a table, put a wood texture on it, put it in like a ray trace engine, it's gonna look like a real table. Doesn't need that much stuff to go, because like your shaders and your render engine actually produces everything. So it is definitely something to think about. And speaking of the portfolio stuff, I wanna basically share my screen again and show you my portfolio, and I'll show you what I like about it and what I don't. I wouldn't say it's a perfect portfolio, but it's a portfolio that got me a few jobs. It's a portfolio that gets the recruiter talking to me and making a lot of connections. So I would say it's in a good place. And I'll show you what I do to make it stand out for most of the time. So let me just go back in and share again. So if we go to my portfolio, you can see I mostly do material work. So these are all kinds of materials and stuff like that. For example, let's take this one. You can see how I try to tell a story with my materials. Everything here is just planes, and my materials just doing their magic with all the roughness maps, normal information. And I always try to have something going in the background, like word HDRI or some particles, just to show off my roughness maps, show off my details, my normals, adding some tips, adding some more shots, my maps, stuff like that. Moving on to here, you can see I always try to make a few different renders, and having like my, for example, in the logo part, I said like having my name or logo here and my art station and all kinds of the other stuff that would just not take space in your render. They're just below it. You just frame it. So that's a good way, I think, of approaching these. And having breakdowns of how I do stuff inside of like here inside of Houdini, my simulations. I basically bake down these and then use a bunch of maps to actually texture the rest of the tank. I have an article on AD level about how I do that if anybody is interested in that. And I do that for every material I do. Like if we open this one, you can see how I put like some particles in the background, some different colors, which makes everything not too dark, so you're not looking at anything, but also not too distracting from the whole thing. So no, I didn't. I learned Substance Designer by just annoying the hell out of other people on our station. I got a few tutorials, and it's basically just trying new things and not stopping experimenting with stuff. And when I'm stuck, I just message a bunch of people that worked in an industry. Can you tell me how to fix this? Can you tell me how to do something else? And I learned Designer in about 2 years. Like basically most of these are in the last 2 years of me just playing around. And speaking about like presenting stuff, here you can see how On Jurassic World, we got like, again, this representing like the dinosaurs and stuff in the background. We have like all the wargors and stuff. This is a nice way of putting your wargors so they're not distracting from the main point. So it is definitely, I think, a good way of showing stuff, and also have a lot of pictures to show how they're used in game, how they are used in different renderers and different places. So it's always like a good option. Here you see the shader bowl, then you see the surface, and then we see how it's in game, how it's looking there. And yeah, it's like that with a lot of my materials, a lot of different stuff showing. I'm trying with each material to have like a good way of presenting it and trying to tell a story. Where is that used? Why is it there? What's going on with it? Like here you can see like the sci-fi lock, which is just entire in designer, and trying to get a nice feel, a nice way of saying where is that? How is that used? Why is that like that? And here you can see, yeah, other tutorials for Substance Designer. I'll drop a few links, in the chat, and you can definitely go and look at those. There's a few different really nice ones. For example, but let me just go over a few more materials and try to explain a few stuff that I was looking at. So here you can see we did a bunch of decals in Designer. So this is only on a plane, and it's then presented in the game. So in the game, you just have a bunch of rubble piles that are just like a material on a plane. So a few decals. Then like different biomes. So for example, these are the underwater materials in Jurassic World. So we have like I presented like with this background, so it makes sense. And here's the material itself. Here's some other materials, some rock surfaces. Here's like some interesting breakdowns, like of building like seashells and like some crabs for in Designer. So everything is like procedurally built just to get some interesting stuff going on. I think I had on this one. I think I had a breakdown here as well, so I can show you how I warp stuff. But basically, yeah, here you can see a bunch of height maps being warped, and it creates these different and nice shapes that you can then use in the end result. So how this played out, you can see how this is made until the end of it, and then this is like basically this bit in the middle that you can see here. So you can do Designer is a really powerful tool, really flexible to learn. And here you can see other kinds of materials. Like this is like a recreation of a Megascan material, so I'm trying to get a scan-like quality inside of Designer, which is totally possible. You can see the stuff. I basically download a few Megascans, and then I compare the normal maps and have in my render I have the Megascans and then my material, and basically I try to match mine to the Megascans as close as possible, and sometimes even make it better. In terms of other materials, in all of them, I'm just trying to add some kind of like story to it, or some gruesome render here, like here. Having the spectral values hitting the walls here really accentuates the material and shows you the details that are added. In here, the other material, it's a mud material, but it shows you how it would look outside and in an actual render setting. This one is pretty straightforward, doesn't need much explanation. this one here, I show you how you can make a small scene with it and just present it in a nice way, where a scene is basically you have like this path and these snowy cliffs. So basically, it's a nice way of presenting stuff, not just posting it for the sake of it, but posting it about why have you made it like that. Having everything have a purpose is super important. And yeah, the same goes with other materials. Everything I do, I try to have basically some kind of like story and where it's used. Like here you see a shader bowl, then a plane with some good lighting, and then how it looks in game. It's important to show these. And here you can see how on this one, here I have a scene and trying to show it in a different way, not only just a plain render, which definitely helps a lot. And this one is kind of having its own stuff going on for it. And in terms of the other stuff, it's basically these are my most recent ones, and these are stuff that I'm potentially going to be deleting at some point. I told you I don't really like everything on my portfolio. And for example, like these are all materials that I'm trying to remove. Like this one we use for the NASA props, but the material itself isn't anything special, so I'm trying to remove it and make something a lot more complicated now. Same with this one. If we go back here, like these are one of my first environments. It's something I like. I'm not pretty happy with it, so I'm working on more realistic environments right now. So this is something we've done in Unreal. It's one of the first things I did with Unreal. A few meshes, a few materials, some foliage. This one is quite nice. It's a model in ZBrush a friend of mine did, and I retextured. Nothing too fancy, but you can see how it looked before and how it looked after. So obviously, this is an example of a portfolio I think can get you a good job in the industry, presenting everything in a nice way to catch the eye, some colors, some variety. I think it's nice. If I go to my manage portfolio settings and show you old stuff, you would see like you can see the difference between my old work and my new works. Here I did stuff in Blender, some pretty simple materials. Like in the beginning, nothing too much, just a few shapes. And for example, on this one, I think I had an image in there where, yeah, here you can see like before and after. These are like 3 months apart from me learning designer. So just a mushy shape and then an actual mud shape. It's quite the difference. So I think presenting yourself in a way like this is like super important in my opinion. Yeah, that mech is a tutorial, so the tutorial is not a good thing on your portfolio. For example, that's another thing. If we recognize a tutorial or in your portfolio, we're not gonna move forward with your application for a job. Same goes with some material artists that copy the other material artists. Like there's like, let's say 20 material artists on our station that are quite well known, and people really try to copy them. And well, it's not the same with uni work. Like if your uni work is like up to par and it's really nice, then it's not a big deal, because uni work is not a tutorial technically. For example, I'll show you. There's like this colleague of mine at work that he only has uni work on his portfolio, and he got the job with just uni work. So, but he's really good as well. So you can see this is his portfolio, and I think that's an impressive portfolio for a student, and that definitely will get you a nice job. But he's an environment artist, so oh, is he? Yeah, he is. He is really good. He's really smart and he's really good. So I think that's a good example for a person that can get a good portfolio and then get a job. And it really shows that the dedication, the core, and he does know Unreal quite well. And I think knowing Unreal is half of the work right now, because most studios will use Unreal at some point. I think those are good examples for going in, but definitely tutorial work is something that shouldn't be really considered a portfolio piece. I will also try to find a few designer tutorials to share with you, some good starting points, because there are a few tutorials that are really good, and I think will really help you understand how to work with designer, because it can be a bit scary or daunting in the beginning. So having some strong foundation is, I think, really good. So let me try and find a few of those for you and share for anybody who's interested. As well, don't hesitate to reach out to me with any material questions when those arise. So I am definitely happy to help. I try to help as much students as possible, because I know from a personal perspective how hard it is to get into the games industry, and it's definitely it is definitely something worth helping people for. Yeah, material challenges are really nice. People really help each other. To be honest, I didn't have much time to participate in material challenges. The project we're working on right now at work is insanely complicated, and we're doing like I'm personally doing like 40-50 hours of overtime each month, and I don't really want to touch substance outside of work at this point, because it's been a lot recently. So I would definitely something to try when you have a bit more free time to work. But that's how I did with my that's how I did with my meat math challenge, and it really helped me a lot understanding Painter better and meeting new people, meeting executives at, let's say, Adobe, Nvidia. So I think that was something that helped a lot, and the prizes were really nice as well, and a lot of people got in there. It was super creative space to work in. So this is one of the tutorials you can go and get. I think the Substance Fundamentals tutorials from Daniel are insanely good for beginners. Not all of his tutorials are necessarily good, because not all of them will teach you something new, but the fundamentals are there. So I think those are a really good place to start with tutorials. And another good place for tutorials in Designer, let me just find the place. Another good place for tutorials are JRO tools. They make really good brushes, alphas, concept art tutorials, and really good substance designer. And one of the best places to go is called Level Up Digital. They make some of the best tutorials out there, and I think it's good. Javier Perez also has a few good tutorials on YouTube that are free, but they're not necessarily that good because he does have quite a weird way of making materials, a bit different than everybody else. So I would be mindful. When you start looking at tutorials from different people, it can also be a bit confusing because there isn't like a single best way to do something in Substance Designer, and everyone who's been working professionally in Designer has a certain style, and you would get confused because different people will tell you different things, but there's multiple ways to do the same thing. While when you're modeling something, it's not really the same case, even when you're sculpting something. So be mindful of that, because that's going to be the hardest thing in the beginning for getting your Substance Designer skills up to par, in my opinion. But it's definitely a tool worth knowing, and Substance Designer is a gateway software to technical art. And I think the most successful game developers are technical artists, because you can participate in the art part, but also make cool tools and solve bigger issues, big problems, and it's definitely quite interesting.